Thank you. My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Samas and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is in the world, wherever you are tuning in from. Brenna, you are on Eastern time, I think, so it's 10 a.m., right?
That is correct, John.
Cool. Lots to get into today, but as you can see from the three sort of biggest headlines, at least the one rated about 2 hours ago, most of them were sort of not on the court. Even Wawrinka and the bigger picture stuff around that is kind of a non-tennis thing, if you like. It's more looking at his legacy and sharing a beer on the court with Craig Tiley, which I enjoyed a huge amount. Yeah, where shall we start? Well, I think we'll start with, because I want to look at the draw and go up. It just makes it easier for me going through it. We are going to start with another thing, really, which is non-tennis in a way, which is Sinner winning his round 3 clash in 4 sets over Spit City. The headline, though, is not necessarily the 4-set win. It's the narrative that has been building or has built regarding there was a heat scenario where they had to have a break, an enforced break because of that. And it did come at an opportune moment for Yannick Sinner because I think he was struggling with cramps, as some videos have shown. Yannick was asked in press afterwards about his luck running out. I think it was a bit of a clumsily worded question, but it wasn't bad. It was just like, yeah, I just think it was clumsily worded. But because I don't think really him getting to world number 2 and previously world number 1 and winning a couple of Australian Opens, I don't think there was any moment where I thought he was lucky, except for maybe the fact that he ran into Medvedev, who was obviously struggling physically, having, that's a bit of fortune, but he also didn't have a lot of fortune at the French Open, Yannick, so it comes in roundabouts, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, definitely in Australia, right? I wouldn't say there's any luck there, but
did he drop a set even last year? I don't think he did. En route to the title.
I think, yeah, maybe one. But yeah,
he didn't.
I mean, the only string of luck is Wimbledon against Dimitrov.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I think it was just sort of clumsy. And by the way, Yannick didn't take any offense to it, etc. But anyway, but I also got the sentiment. It did come at a good time. This heat rule, but it is a rule. It's not tennis changing the rules to suit Yannick Sinner. Although I'm sure the Australian Open are pretty just desperate to get the big clashes in the semi-final. I think as long as Novak stays in the tournament, there'll be a lot of anticipation regarding the semis. But they also probably do want a Sinner Alcaraz final because they've not had one yet, unlike the US Open, Wimbledon, and the French Open.
Yeah, I'll go on a little monologue, as you will. So going into yesterday, I was very intrigued because everyone knew that the conditions were going to be crazy. It's actually been like historically cold in Melbourne this tournament. Okay. So we haven't run into anything like this, but everyone knew it was 100 degrees is on the docket, and we're obviously in the first year of the heat rule effect, which goes into effect, I believe, like when it's over 95 or 90 degrees.
Got it.
And I don't know if that means they have
to
go
30 degrees centigrade, I think, just to
okay. Yeah, thank you. But I wasn't sure if that meant that the players had to go off court or they got 10-minute breaks after 3 games. So going into today, going into last night, I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting because we know the conditions are going to be what they're going to be. Now, what I presume was going to happen, they obviously moved the start times up, but I thought all stadium courts were just going to be closed from the start because I think the earliest match was 12 midday. I think that's when Sinner and Sposiri started. So
They well, just quickly, they did move, I think, play forward by half an hour.
they did.
I think that was mainly just thinking that there could be a few disruptions throughout the day rather than
Right.
I don't think there's much difference between a midday or 11:30 a.m. start in terms of the temperature. It's not like
Right.
they're starting a couple of hours earlier, so they're a bit cooler, or starting a couple of hours later. But
Yeah.
anyway, go on.
Yeah. So I was just interested because
Look at the scoreline, by the way. Look at that scoreline.
yeah, yeah, no, it's real, and that's why anyway, the roofs weren't closed, which surprised me. So they played 2 hours in the outdoor conditions, and it was kind of one of those things where you knew it was coming at some point. And I guess they also have a scale. Maybe it's a 5-point scale, and it was at like 4, and then it got to 5, and they had to pull the plug. Now, with the timing, like I said, a little over 2 hours into the match, Sinner is cramping from head to toe, shaking out the arms, can barely walk. His serves are going, maybe 89, 90 miles an hour. And yeah, Sposiri's on top, looking fresh and clean, and was really just going to run away with the third set. But then, Fergus calls him over. 10-minute rule goes into
Oh, it was
effect.
Fergus Murphy, was it? Okay. I mean, not that he's in charge of that decision necessarily, but
Might as well. And I'm watching on the other screens. I think it was Mahacha Musetti, which was occurring, and I think Shelton and Vachereau was just getting ready to start, and so they finished that. Or it was Noskova and Wang also playing.
okay.
They played 2 games. I think it was 2-2, the girls, and then they went off court for good. The Musetti and Mahach one was interesting because it really took them like 6 minutes. They closed the roof super quickly, and then they were back playing before even Sinner and Sposiri were playing. Because Sposiri and Sinner had, probably 5 or 6 extra minutes because they finished the game. They got off court. Mahach and Musetti were in the middle of a game, and obviously the narrative is being circulated around the courts. What's going on? Not the narrative, but just like the heat rule is going to effect, so everyone's going to have to stop because we're stopping one match. We have to stop all the matches, right? So, so that's that. Of course, timing, unlucky.
Unlucky for
Sposiri laughed about
Spitz
it too.
and
Yeah.
lucky for Yannick, yeah. There's a couple of things in the chat, and I also want to get your thoughts on Spitz City because you came across Spitz City last year
Yep.
at the Challenger, right?
Yep.
Hall of Fame Challenger. All right, we'll come to you with him in a moment, but just before we do, I will just address the Yannick sort of, is there a conspiration here to help him get to the final? I don't doubt that these forces are at play at various stages across all sports. I mean, I think the best example is Formula One at the end of the season 4 years ago, I think it was, when they basically conspired to have a dramatic finish. And I think Formula One has been kind of out that for many years. And I think it harmed the sport. I think tennis needs to be careful with that too. However, if we look at this as an isolated incident, I don't think it's at play here. And if you think it is, then it's nothing more than you think. We don't know. But I don't doubt that there are examples of it. I just want to use those examples when they're more concrete than this particular one. But I want to get your thoughts on Spitz City because, as I say, you saw him at close hands and spoke to him as well last year. What were your thoughts on his display, but also him as a player as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, he's been on fire this year. Obviously, a short year. We're 3 weeks in, but I think lost in the quarterfinal in Auckland, which was his best run since his real first ATP tournaments were last year and kind of that indoor swing. I mean, obviously, he's played some Grand Slams, but yeah, it was in Brussels where he lost to, I think it was Felix in the semis. But, still gaining ATP experience. And he's a guy who, dominated the U.S. Challenger circuit and definitely earned his way and played his way to this level. But yeah, I feel like these last 3 weeks have been different for him. Firing a bit more, playing a bit more aggressive. He's a solid player, off both wings, good athlete, good serve. He's got a great foundation, but it's not something that I would say there's not something that's popping in his game. But what I've noticed the last 3 weeks, and especially last night, was the backhand, his ability to not only defend, but just move out of his corners really well, especially the backhand wing. I was really impressed, and just playing a little bit more of an aggressive game. And yeah, I mean, he credits his development and his kind of passion, determination to college tennis. He was a Longhorn, played in a couple finals there, and I mean, yeah, he's just a gamer, super competitive, and it's really fun to see the young Americans getting on the scene because they work hard and they deserve this opportunity. And it feels like he was a bit robbed in this scenario, but ultimately can't do anything about it. And he owns that a bit in terms of I had the ability to close out the third set on my terms, had a couple more break looks in the fourth, but man, I would be lying if I say I expected a competitive match like that. So credit to Elliot in terms of his preparation and dealing with the heat, because that's as much of the battle as dealing with the opponent is being able to fight off the heat. And he looked fresh.
Ghosty says he did a bit of a dive on Spit City. Well, I always fear when Ghosty goes into his dives. It's like the FBI. But anyway, 119 points to 121 for a 4-set encounter. That is very, very close. Yeah. So hats off to Spitzy there. I don't think that'll make him feel much better right now. But also interestingly, the 9+ shot rallies, which are, I'm going to say off the top of my head, the least of the 3 metrics we can see, they are generally the least likely. A lot of rallies, of course, will be done in under 4 shots, particularly on a quicker surface. But nevertheless, long rallies were going his way. The mid-range rallies were kind of 50-50. It was just those shorter ones. So whether Yannick had a slightly better serving day, as we would probably expect from, I don't know, there's a case to say Yannick Sinner is the best server in the world. I'm fine with listening to cases for Novak, for example, Djokovic, that is, not Dennis, and obviously some of the big guys such as Opelka. But yeah, nevertheless, some good stuff here.
John, one thing that I'd like to pose to you, but also something I was curious about during these 10-minute delays, like what is allowed? I saw, they show the hallway, and Sinner goes one way, and Darren Cahill was back there. And they went their separate ways, but I'm just curious, like, what is allowed? Is he able to take a shower? Is he able to get some treatment?
Did he take a shower?
I would,
from what I understand.
I would like to.
And I think it's anything goes. It used to be a bit stricter, Brenner, in terms of, like I remember when they had the rain delay for Rafa against Roger. I think only Tony Nadal was allowed to go and chat to him, and obviously with coaching and all the rest of it, those rules have become obviously a lot more lax in terms of on-court coaching. And yeah, they can do whatever they want in the allotted time. Was it not slightly more than 10 minutes? It might have been 10 minutes.
It definitely was. A little bit more. Nothing crazy, I'd say.
Yeah. Anyway,
minutes, but
Sinner wins in 4 sets. Hats off to Spit City for pushing Yannick more than anyone else so far at this tournament. And who knows, it might well be a case of pushing him more than anyone else. When we look back on that Dimitrov match that you highlighted at Wimbledon, no one got closer to him, even Carlos in the final. Looking at Yannick's next opponent, it's going to be Luciano Darderi, after Darderi managed to dispatch of Karen Khachanov in 4 sets today. I think both of us, or maybe it might have been Jack. Who did I do a preview for this with? I thought it might have been you, but
Jack.
It might have been Jack. Okay, yep. Or it might have been. Wasn't with you 2 days ago? We spoke about Khachanov and Darderi. I thought it was you and I. Anyway, I know I went for Khachanov in 5, but yeah, don't worry, Aussie Open and all that stuff. But these guys have never played before, by the way, Yannick Sinner and Darderi. But before we just get into that, these two, have never played before. But Darderi obviously winning in 4 sets over Khachanov. It was a tough one in terms of the prediction, because I felt that Darderi was playing some of his best hard court tennis. He's got a sort of funky style to him. He's also very happy to mix and match it in terms of his slices and stuff, which I think does him no end of good on clay in particular. But I think I just went for experience in the end. But ultimately, Darderi, pulls through with the win.
Yeah, I mean, I went with experience. I went with maybe fitness too. I think of Khachanov being just this engine that typically doesn't run out, push on 4.5 hours and maybe you'll see something, but just never really got rhythm. Obviously like important first set, but Darderi slipped a bit in the second and Khachanov kind of regained control. And then it was honestly, it was Khachanov just trying to avoid that big Darderi forehand. And I thought going into this match, Khachanov's backhand is, it's got good angle. It stays pretty low and flat. And Darderi would be frustrated by having to hit so many backhands. But he just kind of plays instinctively and goes out his way. And I think Khachanov, as the match went on, was thinking a little bit too much and didn't do well on return. Like, that was a real big problem for Khachanov in this match. I wouldn't say Darderi served amazing, but when you're not able to get into return games and get rhythm, and it's obviously a big contrast coming from Basaveretti, right? It's just a totally different player in terms of like the aggressive nature of Darderi. And as we've talked about, like the progression on hard courts for Darderi has been very, very impressive, and it's happened really quickly.
Just looking at Breakpoints 1, I think I was talking about this, I think, a day or two ago. For those of you that are more into your soccer or your football and you're very familiar with XG, which has come in, and I know a lot of sort of old schoolers don't like the XG thing, but actually it was subconsciously what we always thought. When you watched a soccer or football match, you'd not that soccer and football are two different things. I'm just trying to tailor my language to both audiences across the pond. But when you came away from the match, or when you finished watching the match, everyone would be on one side or the other saying which side deserved to win. And it's always based on which side creates the better chances. If a goalkeeper has an unbelievable display and posts and bars are hit and just one shot on target the other direction, but you win 1-0, you always go, wow, they were lucky. It's the sort of metric that we've always used for football. And tennis, the equivalent, by the way, is a bit more black and white. It's sort of break points, isn't it? We go, oh my goodness, if you're 1 from 17 on break points and the other guy's 3 from 3, we sort of go, wow, they were a little bit lucky today because, 17 break point opportunities and could only take 1. Well, here, Darderi wins that metric as well, in a way, in that he had 8 break point opportunities on the Khachanov serve and could only take 3 of them. I would actually say that's about average. 3 from 8, 38%. Khachanov was just a little bit more ruthless at 50-50. Interestingly, I'd love to know the stat for this, and it might not even be available, but I wouldn't be surprised if Breakpoints 1 is slightly higher than just points 1 in general. So looking at that, 3 from 8, 38% feels about right. As like, I think the average server against the average returner, the average server will win 62% of their points. And yet when I tend to look at Breakpoints 1, it does tend to be exception of, like I say, 1 from 17 or whatever. But often I'm looking at, 50-50, 50% of Breakpoints 1, 60% of Breakpoints 1. So, and I'm thinking that shouldn't be like that. So I wonder if there's some mental side of it, particularly when you're the server, when you feel, oh no, I'm under pressure here. Just like taking a penalty and you've got to score that penalty to keep your team in the tournament, compared to taking that penalty to win the match, has a very different psychological. So you're the server and you're waiting. You're 30-40, you're break point, you're under pressure. You feel not great. And the returner feels pretty good because it's a chance. It's like a chance to have a really good go at this match, if you like. And I wonder if that might skew the stats somewhat. Just a little.
Yeah, and I also, what comes to mind for me, John, is like a breakpoint at Love 40 is a little bit different than a 30-40 breakpoint.
Definitely.
So
definitely. I sometimes wonder if Love 40 as well, the returner switches off a bit, and just thinks, I've got 3 more of these chances. I might go big. I'm going to play a bit differently. I'm chilled. I don't mind if it's an unreturned. Equally, that the server feels a bit chilled in a way. They're obviously staring down the barrel, but it's like, well, I'm going to do 2 first serves. I saw Djokovic do 2 first serves today when he had 3 match points in the pocket. And I'm telling you now, if he's match point down, he's not doing 2 first serves, even Novak Djokovic, I don't think. But yeah, I think it's an interesting aside. Okay, I've got slightly distracted. But yeah, Khachanov out, Darderi through. Darderi versus Sinner. They have never played, as I said. But listen, Sinner may have had his wobble. I guess he's very much the favourite going into this clash.
Yeah. I haven't looked at the weather.
No, of course it's not a couple of days away yet, or 36 hours or so.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely it's a very entertaining watch if you do get a chance to watch Darderi, just because his style, like just how aggressive he plays, and he really throws his body into all these shots. I mean, I like to say his forehand move mountains. Like it's insane what he can do. But he's just learning kind of
just quickly on Dardetti and his style. I saw him just slice for a whole set pretty much on the backhand anyway. Again in Morocco last year. And I thought that's kind of. I actually thought it might have been a genuine, but then he switched it.
Right. He did it a little bit last night too.
Okay.
He's building, like you said, like building that variety. But yeah, he is a lot of fun to watch. And who knows? Like he just goes for it. So that's definitely an annoying matchup to play when he almost plays it on his terms. But yeah, anything center leaves short, I expect Dardier to pounce on, get to the net.
Yeah. Ghosty's not sure. I don't know how else to word it. Maybe I worded it clumsily, Ghosty, like that journalist who said Sinner was lucky. It's just a case of like love. Come back to that love 40 thing, which is very similar. I wonder if somebody can collect 1 million scenarios, which there will have been in tennis history, of which of the 3 break points are the. I feel, and I'm fine with it if it gets proved wrong one day, but I feel like 1540 is the golden break moment. I feel at love 40 because of that dynamic of the returner just maybe not quite being anxious enough. We often look at nerves as being a negative, but actually it can also hone your mind a bit. I think it's always good to have a few nerves and just to get you more zoned in. And I think you can be too relaxed, and you can also be the servers just love 40. Okay, let's go for it. But the 1540 is the moment, right? Because if you get to 3040. It's like the return is like, oh no, maybe I've lost my chance. And the server's going, wow, I felt terrible at love 40. I didn't feel good at 1540, but at 3040, I feel quite good now. And I wouldn't be surprised if, because there's such a huge sample size, we only need to see a 1% differential for it to mean something. I feel, and feelings can be wrong, and I'm fine with it being proven wrong, 34% of the points, if we just look at breaks, right? Love 40, I'm going to say 33%. 1540, 34%, and 3040, 32%. I think it goes down a little with each in that respect, goes down a bit in the point. But yeah, it's just a psychological feel and how you're feeling about those points. By the way, Dardetti, is he taking a set? I'm saying no. I'm saying no. I think Yannick's had his scare. This could be a night match as well. Obviously, the deeper into the tournament, the more likely you are to play in the evening, which I think. Go on.
I don't want to be like, I don't want to. I mean, we've spent a lot of time on it, and I know we have other things to get to, and I don't want to be too sports sciencey because we can save that for someone else to answer. But here we are, a year later, after the Holger Rune center match, where his hand is shaking. They're one set apiece. They're in the hot sun. Here we are a year later, and
oh yeah, I forgot about that Rune one.
I mean, like we're just still dealing with physical ailments. Go back 5 months. I don't know. Maybe I'm off with that. Definitely not 5 months. 4 months. 3 months. Shanghai. Third set. Greek sport. Dealing with cramps. Can't even finish the match. Like last night, he would not have been able to finish the match.
You think that was that important?
100%.
Okay.
100%, because you can't get like treatment really for, even though I think they were working on his calves, but like he goes down, he's going to lose that set 6-1. So he's down 2-1, and you're going against arguably one of the fitter guys. I mean, like you said, he's played, and he thought that Spizzirri goes, yeah, that was like dry heat. I didn't really mind it. He had trained in it before, obviously Texas, Florida, you name it.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? He's down 2-1 against a guy who is going to play rally ball for the next 90 minutes. It wasn't going to happen, John. It just wasn't. And that's why it does feel like robbery in that sense.
Right. Got it. Yeah. The best example, of course, of recent memory of that was the Carlos Novak Djokovic French Open semi-final of 2023. The match ended, not officially, but pretty much the moment that Carlos cramped at the beginning of the third set. And lost I think he lost the game, which I think could have been I think it was on return, but he got a game penalty because he had
he took the MTO and
exactly. mid-game, so to speak. And that was it. I think he won, I'm going to say, 2 more games for the rest of the match. And actually, I was kind of impressed and surprised he managed to win that many. I don't know if Novak got distracted or whatever, but that was the match, end of story. And yeah, you can just about get over the line. I've seen Medvedev get over the line in a match when he was cramping, but he was serving out, I think, at the time. And if you've got a big serve, you might get away with it because he could barely walk. But for sure, if he wasn't so close to the finish line, he would have lost that match too. That was somewhere in North America. It was Miami or Cincinnati, or I think one of those two. Okay, well, Sinner, Darderi. I think we're both going straight sets, Yannick, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next section of the draw. I think it's the next section, which is Ben Shelton and Casper Ruud. I think it's the next section.
That is correct. Yeah.
So we have Casper Ruud winning in 4 sets over Cilic. I dipped in and out of this match. We're now getting more favorable for my time zone and a lot less valuable for yours, but hopefully that works well in terms of the matches you were able to see in me. And Shelton, actually, I didn't manage to catch his match. But again, the results that Shelton is getting, I think, banana skins or greater. I mean, Vacherot, we've spoken about his record before over the last sort of 3 or 4 months. He's extremely good. But for Ben Shelton to come through that in straights is, I'm very impressed.
John, it was a professional performance.
Nice.
And it's fun to say that because I think that's the only thing that's been like holding me back about being all in on Ben Shelton is like, will he be erratic? Will he kind of have these dips and ebbs and flows throughout his match? And, it was just, like I said, like business. And I mean that because he broke in the business end of the first and second set. And I was like, why not? Why won't he do it again in the third? So yeah, 4-all, he holds. And then, get the sit down, come out of the sit down and find a way to break Vacherot. And the matchup's difficult, right? Because Vacherot, I haven't watched much of him this year. I watched more of his Cinderella run and what happened after that. But it's interesting, like doesn't give you a lot of rhythm. He's obviously a big server too. I think it like kind of goes under the rug. The guy's got a big serve and can kind of blow you off the court. And then, the backhand super flat, likes to go back behind, and he plays aggressively, and it's difficult on the rhythm wise. But last night, the Shelton forehand just firing time and time again, and he's learning a little bit in terms of like getting himself in the rhythm, in the flow, and using that forehand to kind of survive the point before he gets the opportunity to finish the point. And that's impressive when you have that big of a forehand. It's kind of like Carlos on the forehand side too, right? Use it to defend and get yourself back into the point and then look for an opportunity. Ben kind of has the flexibility, let's say, and the ability to go off his back foot and hit an open stance forehand for a winner. But yeah, it was all about that last night. But I just am so impressed with his ability to put points together, have patience, put pressure on the opponent, because now he's rally tolerant where he's playing these points on his terms and he has the weapons to finish. So I would just say I'm impressed. And like I said, to start it, just a professional performance. Didn't really waver in the breaker either. So
interesting metric here regarding the best of 5 and whose level gets elevated most by it. It does seem to be Ben Shelton. Alcaraz is also figuring highly in this list, which makes sense. I think he's only lost 1 best of 5 match, and that was 2020. Sorry, only lost 1 5th set, I should say. So it is a slightly different metric in a way because it's just analyzing, do you win 5 setters? Whereas this is just looking at your best of 3 to best of 5. But either way, Shelton and Alcaraz, I'm sure, love the best of 5 format in very different ways. And yeah, Shelton excelling. And his draw, I mean, we've spoken about Sinner's draw. We've also touched on Djokovic, as I think, in the past. And not bad to get to the second week. But Shelton has had to come through Humbert and Vacherot in 2 of his 3 matches. I will say that his second round match was quite kind in how the draw fell. But to come through Vacherot, and he's not dropped a set, to get to the second week, and you've played Vacherot and Humbert, I think, your Yannick Sinners, your Carlos Alcarazes, and Novak Djokovic probably would have dropped a set to one of those guys. Did Djokovic lose to Vachereau in that run? Who did Vachereau beat in the
Yeah,
semi-final?
yeah,
I
sounds
think it
about
was
right.
Djokovic, right? Yeah.
I think
So
he beat Joker in was it the quarters?
I thought the semis. I think the
It
quarters
might have been
Djokovic beat
semis. Yeah,
Bergs.
that sounds right.
Yeah,
Yep, you're right.
But yeah. Anyway, just another feather in Shelton's cap, and yeah, I'm like Matthew as well in the chat, who says that basically I was a bit worried about him. I haven't felt good about Ben since he picked up that injury in New York, and I thought that the Aussie Open still in that whole returning and getting back on the tour sort of horse, so to speak. I thought maybe the Aussie Open might just come a few weeks too soon, but he is well and truly back on the horse. I actually think Ben and his game, Ben at his peak on the surface that suits him or an environment that suits him, i.e. hardcourt Australian Open, I think he can do damage to the absolute elite. The problem is he's not at his peak long enough against those two guys in particular, as we saw at the French Open and Wimbledon last year. We did see it, though, in Australia for an hour or so against Yannick a year ago in the semis. And I think he might have had a set point on his own serve in the first set. He certainly was serving for the first set and wins that, and it could have been a very different match. So I'm looking forward to potentially Ben playing either of those two, if not later on in this tournament, maybe at a slam again later on this year. Ben is going to be playing Casper Ruud in the next round. Ruud came through a four-setter that I thought was going to be straight as I was watching it. Just felt that Ruud was just a little bit better than Cilic in most sort of areas of the game for the first two sets, and I saw that continue in the third. There was it was a funny moment, I think, as Ruud was trying to serve out the second set, and he went down love 40. But it felt like a weird love 40. I think there might have been an incredible net cord, like an absolute dead net cord that from Cilic got super lucky to go from love 30 to love 40. And I thought as long as Ruud doesn't get unnerved, we already spoke about these sort of love 40 moments, he should still come out of this because he's just better than Marin Cilic in this part of the match. However, although he did get out of it and he did win that second set, the third set somehow Cilic and by the midpoint of the fourth set, Cilic was easily the better player for the previous hour and actually was up a break in the fourth set before ceding that break, and then the momentum one more shift in the direction of Casper. Before I get your thoughts on these sort of scenarios, I do just want to highlight as well that Casper in his on-court interview, everyone's talking to him at the moment about the child scenario, and there is an amusing a chat that he gave on to Barbara Schett, I think her name is, the Eurosport presenter. He was asked about possible baby names, Margaret Court, and then the Daphne is obviously the name of the women's trophy. And Casper said, well, we've been through about 200 different possible names if it is a girl. Anything is up for grabs, but not sure if Margaret is the one we'll go for. Yeah, I think it's not going to be called Margaret, put it that way.
No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, he did 25 aces, Gene. Sorry, just career high. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I'm not gonna talk too much here, John, because I haven't watched Ruud. I'm gonna pitch you a question in that sense, but honestly, it's been impressive from Ruud. Like, on hard courts, he finishes the year. I mean, going back to even Cilic and Ruud's previous matchup, as you were talking about with Fergus, they played in Stockholm. And, it's a slower hard court in Stockholm. So it did give Ruud a little bit of an advantage, but he was playing some really good tennis even that week. So not going to put it past him. But Cilic, been playing great, the last few matches. And I thought this would, be difficult because Casper likes more time, and he's developed he's been a guy who he's smart enough tactically and has the athletic capabilities of making these minor adjustments to be more aggressive, to having to go for more shots, because as he talks about so often, like everyone everyone can play off both wings now. Everyone can be super aggressive off both wings, and he can't play that kind of like passive, deeper tennis. Musetti does it so well, but he dictates the pace in a different way. But I just want to ask you, like, what's been so impressive to you in terms of Casper Ruud's performance so far in Australia?
Not just in Australia, but I'd go back 11 months to Dallas last year. And in fact, I'd even go back to the summer of 2024 when Casper told me, I think it was, in the mixed zone in Estoril about how he knows he can't play the same sort of tennis he was playing up to that point in his career. He'd obviously brought him a huge amount of success, including a couple of or 3 Grand Slam finals up until that point. But with Carlos and Yannick hitting the ball so hard and Djokovic still around, etc., he said, I've got to up my game, as in like play just a little bit more aggressively, hit that ball harder. And if it means taking 1 or 2 earlier losses in tournaments, it's because he's only got one thing left to achieve. He's never going to get to world number 1, I don't think. So really, if he's going to beat Carlos or Yannick on any given day, now I still think he loses 9 out of 10, but at least it's 9 out of 10 and not 10 out of 10. If we think of people like De Minaur, for example, against Carlos De Minaur against Sinner and a few others. So that's the first thing. The second thing is over the last 11 months since that run to the final where he lost in Dallas, and then he picks up an indoor title on hard. And just remember, Rafa Nadal, the great Rafa Nadal, only ever won 1 indoor tournament in his career. And I draw the comparison just because of the RPM and the spin rate that both of those two players get. And that's how, that helps them a lot, especially on clay. But I found him a much better hard court player in 2025 than at any point in his career. So much so that when I did a year-end predictions for 2026, it was so difficult from like 6 to 15 in the world sort of predictions. I think, you could make a case for 10 or 20 players filling those last few spots in the top 10 year-end predictions. But actually, I went for Casper Ruud over Lorenzo Musetti, by the way. So I got Ruud in at, I don't know if it was 8, 9, or 10, but maybe 9 or 10. And Musetti's obviously in my thinking, and we'll come to Lorenzo perhaps later or maybe tomorrow. But I went for Casper. And the reason is because I just think that actually, if he can stay healthy and generally fitness hasn't been an issue for him, but it was an issue at unfortunate moments such as the French Open last year, ruled him out of Wimbledon, cough, cough. But I do think his hard court game is also benefiting from that aggression. And I think he's as good as he maybe ever will be on a hard court. And I think it's unfortunate he's playing Ben Shelton next, and we'll come to our predictions and thoughts on that in a moment. But I think he is ready to win 1 or 2 more titles. And I say 1 or 2 more. He won 1 last year on a hard court, and I think he's going to win another one at some point this year. And I just think he's a much more capable player on this surface that actually he probably will. Let's say, I think Indian Wells could be an interesting one for him. I think he could have a really deep run there on a really slow, gritty environment. Although the court has changed, the surface has changed in the last year or so. The actual conditions seem to be very similar just because of the desert air. So, yeah, keep an eye on Casper as long as he's fit and firing. Acapulco as well. If he's playing Acapulco, yep. I hope he is, because I think that would suit him as well. So those 2 tournaments, not necessarily saying he's winning Indian Wells, but a semi-final or a final appearance makes sense for me. Here, I'm not that big on his chances against Ben Shelton, because Ben Shelton, for me, is, as long as he's okay, is top 4, top 5. In these conditions. Whereas I think if Ruud could just elevate himself to somewhere between 6 and 10 on this surface, he's winning a title this year and he's having a deep run at a slam on this surface. Whereas that US Open final appearance, I think, has deceived us a little bit regarding Casper on a hard court. That one in 2022. I mean, he's obviously not playing Yannick or Carlos until the final. That helps. He's not running into Rafa or Novak in that tournament for 2 different reasons. So he beat, who did he beat? He beat Karen Khachanov in a 4-set match in the semis. That's not bad for a Grand Slam semi-final. Karen Khachanov, I'm thinking the Tsitsipas has won in 2023 in Australia. So anyway, apologies. A super, super long answer. Casper Ruud is better than ever on this surface. He'll have great results. I just don't know if it's going to be good enough, though, to beat Ben Shelton. In fact, I'm pretty sure it won't be. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Ben, defending semifinalist, playing very, very high level, aggressive, loves the conditions, loves the format. He's getting the bang for his buck. I mean, he's just playing aggressive and it's paying off, and serving well, returning better, which excites me. So, yeah, I'm going to take Shelton here. Maybe Casper does grab a set, if he gets a good return game and builds up some scoreboard pressure. But yeah, probably Ben in 4.
I'm going to go Ben in 3 in a similar nature to the way Ben has come through in the others. 3 very tight sets, but I'm going to go for Ben either in a tie break or 6-4, for example, across those sets. Okay, head-to-head there's 2-1, by the way, so that is something for Casper to look at. Just quickly, though, one of them came in Acapulco. There we go. Another one in Barcelona, 2 scenarios that I think would suit Casper. And then the other one, I think, does suit Ben, that during the North American swing in Cincinnati in 2022. So those 3 results kind of make sense to me.
Yep.
And I see this one making sense for Ben to level it up at 2-all. There's not obviously a big enough sample size for us to think that one or the other has the edge here. And yeah, I'm going to go for Ben Shelton in straights. Okay, moving on up the draw. The next section is going to see us have Jakub Mensik against Novak Djokovic in the 4th round, because Mensik dispensed of Ethan Quinn, 6-2, 7-6, 7-6. Djokovic came through his match in straights today. 3rd set, obviously a bit tighter, and obviously goes to a tie break. I think there was a crucial point at maybe 5-3 for Djokovic that Botic maybe should have done better on, and then suddenly he's facing those 3 match points I aforementioned, and then Djokovic double faults just to tease us. But the biggest head this, I don't know if you're aware, but Djokovic had a moment of frustration, waxed the ball. And I think context is always important. It's even that default in the US Open of 2020, that was exceptionally unfortunate because there's just so few people there because of COVID. And it does hit that. It's extremely unfortunate because that ball could have gone in any direction, but it does come when Novak has just been broken and Pablo Carreño Busta is about to serve for the 1st set. So again, today he hits that ball in anger because he's just messed up on a point, and it comes within about a meter of hitting a ball kid, I think, for which Novak Djokovic subsequently has, of course, apologized. These things can happen. But yeah, inches away from the biggest story of this Grand Slam, and maybe any Grand Slam since that 2020 default in, so Novak gets away with one there in a way.
Yeah, I only saw the video. That was close.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
That's interesting. So David Law spoke to him in press. That's probably when Novak addresses it and apologizes. But yeah, I mean, there's a great clip. If it's probably got 1 million views on it from 10 years ago, maybe just a little bit less, when Novak is asked at the ATP Tour Finals by a journalist, by the way, today you whacked a ball into the crowd and that could have, hit someone, which would have meant a default. This is 5 years before. Have you seen this video, by the way?
No.
It's fascinating because it's 5 or so years before he ends up getting defaulted at the US Open. And Novak sort of responds saying, yeah, but it could have snowed here today. It could have done this. It could have rained or whatever. And I get Novak's response as in like, it didn't happen. The only thing different to that is it's not, we've got to remember the variable there is chance. We're not talking about a variable that you're in control of. In other words, did you score that penalty? Did you hit that forehand down the line? And yes, I did, but it nearly went out. It just hit the line. Yeah, but it did hit the line. That's different. That's a variable that I'm in kind of control of, if you like. At least you could say that to a large extent, even if you go, look, you were just a bit lucky, because net court is a bit different, of course. And then even with whacking the ball into the crowd, we're in the lap of the gods there in a way. You just don't know where. And my action is causing what could potentially happen. So Novak is very smartly in that response he gave at the O2 Arena 10 or so years ago, intentionally, I think, conflating those two scenarios. But actually, could have, would have, should be applied to him whacking the ball. Well, actually, you can't apply could have, would have, should have to a whacking the ball. And I'm talking to someone who's a trainee lawyer here. I hope this makes sense. He's in control of whacking the ball. And that is not a, well, I could have whacked the ball, but I didn't whack the ball. That's him making a last change of mind, let's say. And then you go, oh, but you nearly whacked the ball. Ah, but I didn't, did I? True. That makes sense. You whacked the ball and you could have hit someone in the audience. Oh, but it could have snowed today. Well, that's that's completely irrelevant. That's not an argument. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It it does come down to intent, but regardless, he would still be liable for his actions in this case. So,
but anyway, and listen, I'm not here to dwell. There's a load of things that go on in tennis that bother me far more than Novak Djokovic whacking the ball, and he would have also been unfortunate because there's a lot of directions for that ball to go in that don't come hit someone. But anyway, listen, straight sets win for Novak today. Straight sets win for Mensik over Ethan Quinn. Have you got anything to say about this particular result?
No, I unfortunately I didn't watch either of them, but I did hear kind of an interesting Mensik Quinn match in terms of low first serve percentages and Mensik maybe feeling it a little bit physically in that third set, and kind of who knows what could have happened if Quinn did push it beyond that. But I thought Quinn had a great shot at this matchup, but you do think about kind of the backhand to backhand exchanges, and you would definitely favor Mensik in those. But in other cases, it sets up a Miami Open final rematch and an opportunity for Novak to get revenge.
Will he get revenge, though? So just before I get your answer to that question, one each head-to-head. Miami Open final, I think, is an interesting one. But I think actually maybe just as interesting is this winning streak that Mensik is on, which, of course, saw him win a title just before the Australian Open. So I think that's also really really interesting for me. That as much as that Miami Open title, I think just makes this a really tough one to call. I don't know how you feel.
I agree. I mean, we're looking at a case where Mensik was down 2-1 against Carreno Busta and, managed to escape it. So, like, we're looking at a kid who, I feel like he does deserve to be here in terms of, he's 20 years old now and now kind of like establishing himself on tour. It is pretty impressive to get here. And yeah, I mean, this is probably the matchup they've been craving. I don't know how far ahead they look at draws, but Mensik, another opportunity to, like you said, continue that momentum, keep the winning streak alive. I think Novak's ability to kind of extend rallies is where you can get hurt a bit if you are Mensik, because as I mentioned, I guess it was kind of a thigh injury in that third set that was bothering him, and the best of 5 format kind of gives Novak a little bit of a maybe a little bit of insurance in a sense. So I think that could play a factor. But I mean,
I do think that's
no reason.
important.
Yeah, no reason why it's not a tight matchup. We're obviously looking at one of the better servers in the world versus the best returner of all time. So
I see two things in Jakob's favor. Certainly the form is in his favor. I think the fact that he's playing so well and won so many matches at the moment in a row. I think the Miami win at least gives him something that a lot of Novak's opponents don't have, and that is potentially the belief. I think often the big three, Rafa, Roger, and Novak, would win matches before they've even started, and after the match has finished, you go back to the pre-match press, comments that the player is saying how excited they are to take the court. Well, I do think Mensik will be very pleased about playing Novak in Australia, especially as the chances will have been running out. But then the best of 5, I think you're right, that will go in Novak's favor before the match gets underway.
Yep.
I do wonder, though, what condition Novak might be in come sets 4 and 5, should it go there. So I'd like to see that. But I think in the other factor in Novak's favor, though, I think would also be it probably being at night, as in Novak rarely. I think he went like 5 years without playing during the day in Australia until, I'm going to say, last year. Or it might be the year before, actually, because I think he had a Yannick Sinner semi-final was during the day in 2024. But there was a very lengthy period from 2019, I think, was against Francis Tiafoe, until 23 or 24 when that first sort of daytime match occurred. So obviously getting towards the latter stage of the tournament, the more likely you are to play in the evening. So I think that'll also be quite good for Novak, just slowing that ball down a little bit in the cooler conditions. Oh,
yeah. I'm looking ahead at the weather, by the way. Today's going to be fine, or I don't know, whatever day it is, wherever everyone is. But Tuesday, another 107-degree day in Melbourne.
But let's say could well be in the evening, which will be
Yep.
just a little bit less. But yeah.
Yeah, so this match it won't affect, but winners of today's matches will have to play on Tuesday. So anyway, our prediction here?
Yeah.
Go for it, John.
Oh, I wanted you to go first.
Okay.
I'll go for it better.
Yeah.
I sort of was thinking when I first saw that these two were going to be playing each other, I thought, oh, this is 50-50. Then I thought back to Mensik Auckland. I thought, maybe 51-49. Then I thought of Mensik Miami. And I thought, okay, 50-48. Then I thought of Novak Djokovic Australia, and that changes obviously a lot. I think Mensik's winning.
Really?
I'm going to go 4 sets, Mensik.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 4 sets Djokovic.
I just think that Djokovic across this year is not going to have as good a 2025 as he had 2024. In 2024, he had an unbelievable year. 3rd best probably amongst everyone on tour in some metrics. Doesn't win a 1,000 title, so Casper Ruud and Mensik, among others, could probably make a case and so on and so forth. But I don't see him making all 4 slam semis. I can see him getting to 2, for example, Wimbledon in particular. I can see him picking up another title, like he won 2 last year. But I do think over the last 24 months, we have seen a decline. And Novak did really well last year because I think his draw was really tough last year. He had Lahetska and Mahac back-to-back, and neither of those 2 players did as much damage to him as I thought. But I think Mensik can and Mensik will. And I'm going 4 sets as opposed to 5 because I think there's 2 elements to the 5th set if it gets that far, which is that one could be Novak's condition, but then there's Novak's experience and so on. So those 2. But yeah, I'm going to go with Mensik in 4 sets.
No, that's totally fair. I mean, I felt like I was proved wrong in Miami. Obviously, we're
Me too.
Almost
Me
a
too.
year. That's 10 months ago. But I just think Mensik's going to have to serve so well, and given he wasn't able to kind of produce that against Quinn today, and kind of looking at I'm seeing almost the winning streak and the physical wear and tear is a little bit of a negative as you get to the kind of like, well, he's probably going on like 14 days now where he's played 8-9 matches. So that's my only thought process there. But hey, let's see.
Let's see indeed. Next section saw Stan Wawrinka play his last match at the Australian Open, and he did go down in a blaze of glory. I saw his last ever winner at the Australian Open, which was a backhand cross-court winner, just sublime. Took a set off Fritz as well, so they're going into the 3rd set, and you go, wow, can he do it again? Wasn't able to. Shared a beer with Craig Tiley, as I said afterwards, after he made a comment a couple of days ago about wishing to have a beer. Well, at least he can have that and chill out for a little while. Of course, this is just the beginning of the end for Stan. He's obviously got the whole year on tour. Fingers crossed. He's actually on the cusp of the top 100 again. And if he can just sort of keep playing this level of tennis, as I saw Jose Morgado tweet today, basically this level of tennis, and he's comfortably playing at all 4 slams without needing a wild card. So that would be great for him. That should be the target. So I'm guessing his last tournament will probably be Basel. I think that makes sense, and that'll come in October. But we've got 10 more months of him on tour. But the former Australian Open winner bowed out in a blaze of glory today, so good for him. Taylor Fritz, I think the concerns are still there regarding Taylor, but we'll maybe come to that in a moment. He's going to be playing Taylor Fritz in the next round. Lorenzo Musetti, who beat Thomas Mahac in 5 sets today. That was a really difficult one to call. I think I might have tipped Mahac to win it, but a really good win there for Lorenzo. That obviously beating Sonego as well in the previous round. So that's 2 tough rounds that Lorenzo has come through. And he's now live ranking world number 3, which is just incredible for him. And yeah, him and Fritz in the next round anyway. Any thoughts on either of these 2 matches, but also the upcoming Musetti-Taylor Fritz match?
I wasn't able to watch the Stan Fritz one. I haven't been able to watch Fritz much in this tournament. It seems like
Did you see much of him pre-Australian Open, though? There was a lot of concerns, especially regarding his knee.
Yeah, I saw a little bit here and there. The knee came up, and he actually talked in the presser a few days ago how he actually has another injury that's come up during this Australian Open. He says he's had it before, so he knows how to manage it a little bit better. But obviously concerning as you get to kind of the latter stages of, you're going to come up against bigger, better players with, better stamina and weaponry and whatnot. And obviously Musetti's a guy he's seen a lot in the last year and a half, 2 years. So I'd say that they're familiar with each other's kind of play style. You think back to that Wimbledon match. That was 2024 where they met. But I'll talk a little bit about Musetti recently. I mean, I thought I would have some physical concerns with him, given that he did pull out of – what did he pull out of? I'm blanking right now. But it was just like an expedition with Zverev before the Australia Open started. But he said, didn't want to risk it. And obviously that puts a little bit of doubt in your mind. But he's been good. And Mahac is a tough guy to play, obviously, in form, playing super aggressive. But, Musetti's just able to dictate the pace so well. Even against Sonego, he was challenged, but, found ways to prevail. And I think he just poses such a tough matchup in here. If he wants to make it physical, it's probably not a bad idea against Fritz. But yeah, I mean, I'm, as you can tell, like I'm kind of leaning Musetti in this sense because a little bit of question marks on my side with Fritz. What's been your take on Fritz?
Same. It's a kind of a funny one because, end of 2025, and I'm doing this show with Steve Link about year-end predictions. And I'm thinking Fritz is going to have another great year. He'll be year-end 5 or 6, win a couple of titles, and who knows, one of them might be a 1,000. He'll make more semis and finals of slams as well, I think. Obviously made one Grand Slam final in the past, the US Open of 2024, and I could see him, at that point, replicating it. But his form and health over the last 4 weeks since I recorded that show have had huge question marks, both at the United Cup and then also in this Australian Open where I think he's failed to convince. Conversely, both Steve Link and I said Musetti, I don't know if he can hang on to the top 10. And Gil Gross has gone the other end where he's gone from year-end number 3. And he thinks that there's a real player there that can really push, for example, Carlos and Yannick, especially on clay. And I think he can, by the way, on clay. But I just saw Lorenzo's physical issues when things got tough, etc. But also I doubted his backhand on quicker surfaces, hard actually in a way, maybe even more than grass. So I had him struggling, and I had him struggling at this tournament because I thought he had a tough draw. I thought Taylor's draw was okay. And yet here we are. I feel very differently about both players. I saw Musetti's win over Sonego in the previous round, and the level for both players showed, but Lorenzo in particular was really, really good. Top 5 in the world on a hard court, which suggests you're going to get to the quarters or the semis. I'm kind of talking myself, aren't I, into a Lorenzo win, but there's a stubborn element to me, Brenner, that says stick to what you know, which is what you said a month ago, which is Taylor is better in this scenario.
Yep.
And has proven that in his career. I'll go Taylor in 4 sets, but that could be just pig-headedness from me.
Yeah, it's almost my mind just raced, and it went back to the 2024 match. Fritz Tsitsipas, probably a similar round. I don't know if you remember that at all. I think Fritz prevailed in 4, kind of all tight sets. This kind of has the same recipe, obviously one-hander again. As
but the Fritz Musetti match at Wimbledon is a horror show, is probably too strong. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
From Taylor's point of view, because I think Taylor has a Wimbledon final in him at some point in his career. He's that good on that surface. Should have probably beaten Rafa at the quarterfinal stage in 2022, and he was crestfallen then. And that Lorenzo Musetti match, I thought Taylor's coming through that. Maybe 3, maybe 4 sets. I was shocked that it went 5, I think, and Lorenzo emerged the winner. And then we saw Lorenzo's level get exposed against Novak in the semis, I think it was, in 2024. And yet I was looking forward to perhaps seeing Fritz go up against Novak, because I thought that would have been a really competitive semi-final. But yeah, that's got to be jarring for Taylor, that loss at Wimbledon, and maybe those memories will come back for him as well.
Yeah, but no, we're looking at a tight one, John. I think it goes to distance, and I'm going to take Musetti prevailing.
I get that. They did play not long ago, indoor hard, albeit the ATP Tour Finals, a straight sets win for Taylor Fritz. But Fritz's ATP Tour finals. Funnily enough, despite that win, is kind of like not a great experience for him going out in the round robin stage. And yet Musetti went out in the round robin stage, but he had that incredible win over Di Minor, so it's fine, and he indoor and crowd and Italy and all the rest of it. But anyway, we've made our predictions. Let battle commence, and we can look forward to that one. Oakley Dokley. That's it on the men's side, I think. It took us a while to get there. We were doing some pretty deep dives. Let's try and race through the women's then. We've done a lot of stuff on women's tennis this week, and we've often prioritized them over the men because there's been more storylines. But today it felt like there was a little bit more maybe on the men's side. Well, on the women's side, we had... I'm so gutted we're not going to get Osaka against Iga Swiatek. Osaka withdrew injured. And regarding this withdrawal, I think that does explain why I felt she looked a bit sluggish in her first 2 rounds. I thought it was just, you never know, there could have been a physical issue going on, and it does appear that this is an injury. I think that she was carrying through the 2 previous matches. So we're not going to get Iga Swiatek, Naomi Osaka. We are going to get Inglis against Iga Swiatek. By the way, Iga came through a 3-setter today, a weird match in many respects, winning the first set 6-1, but then losing the before eventually prevailing in 3 sets over a very tricky opponent. I actually think for Iga, the next round will probably be easier than the Kalinskaya match. And
Definitely.
yeah, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, Kalinskaya, my dark horse pick to make the top 10 on the WTA side. But yeah, I wasn't able to catch that, but definitely an interesting scoreline to say the least. Probably both of them didn't play their best tennis at times. But yeah, as Ghosty mentions, the English story, it's definitely a great one coming through. Qualifying, wife to, or I don't know, girlfriend to Jason Kubler. So it's a good kind of Australian narrative. And, obviously the Siegmund win was insane. 3-hour battle. Definitely deserves to be here. But I don't know. I think it's probably a little bit much the moment going against a opponent that probably not familiar with seeing. So it might be difficult, but awesome for her to get this far.
Yeah, second week, of course. They have played once before, and that was somewhere. I'm going to find out, I think. Past meetings. Oh, here we go. Australia, but Adelaide, and 5 years ago. It was a straight sets win for Iga. But I see it being another straight sets win for her, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
Not a bad round. I was a real pity for sorry, Madison, but I was looking forward to an Iga Osaka, especially but I would have wanted Osaka to do herself justice, and it looked like she wasn't able to do that at this tournament. Okay. I saw bits of Rybakina Valentova today. Rybakina is going to play Mertens, by the way. Mertens beating the qualifier Bartenkova in straight sets. Just a quick word on Rybakina. I think it's really good to see her producing her best tennis in these early rounds, or not best tennis, but a good level, because she is more vulnerable than definitely at slams in the early rounds, because you sort of just, you're watching these matches, you're watching the draws, and then suddenly before you know it, Rybakina's in big trouble, and then she's out. That sort of is often one of the early round surprises, but it's not happened this week. I think she's not dropped a set en route to the 4th round. Mertens is an interesting matchup. Mertens is as solid as they come. I think maybe Bartenkova for her, that was just one step too far, and Mertens wasn't going to let her pass. Coming just back to Rybakina, though, and her level today, I thought Valentova in the second set was a really difficult proposal, let's say. I thought she produced some really good tennis in the early to middle parts of the second set, and there was a moment when Rybakina, with one particular point when she was serving, I'm going to say it about 3-all, it might have been 2-all, and she had a little bit of a wobble, and I thought, here we go, could be a break, especially as Rybakina had a point that she was well up in, and the volley wasn't quite good enough, and Valentova ran it down before winning that point. And I thought, okay, when you lose that kind of point and you're serving and now you love 30, we could be going 3, but Rybakina had other ideas. She held serve and went on to win the match. Regarding the matchup with Mertens, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Rybakina's kind of cruised here. The only thing that I didn't watch her last night, but the only thing that points out is like she saved 7 of 9 break points.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's putting herself in these tough positions, but getting through it. It's always good to like get that confidence momentum. I did look at this head to head 6-1. I feel like Mertens always plays some like pretty good level tennis at the start of the year in Australia, even the lead up events. So I think that's good for her. But yeah, both girls who like strike the ball very well. Obviously, Rybakina kind of in the class of her own. But yeah, she's totally dominated this head to head. But you think back to Cincinnati last year, which was their most recent matchup, where it went 3 sets and Rybakina prevailed 7-5 in that third set. So, and who knows? Who knows? There could be a battle here, but ultimately, I do think Rybakina finds a way to pull it out.
Yeah, Mertens' only win coming on clay in Madrid 2021. But then since then, Rybakina has won the following 4, I think, matches, including 1 at a Grand Slam, which was at the French Championship, the following 5, I should say. But yeah, hard court as well. A tournament where Rybakina has been to the final before, levels. You talk about them both being clean ball strikers. I would agree with that. But Rybakina is... There is a case, and when she plays like she did at the WTA finals, to say she's actually in a bracket of her own when it comes to ball striking, and it's the absolute top of the women's game. I'm going to go Rybakina, and I'm going to go Rybakina in straight sets. You too?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next little section sees Anisimova beating Stearns in straight sets, and Wong. For me, this is an upset, beating Nos, winning that particular encounter. So we're going to have Anisimova against Wong. Anisimova's also not dropped a set, and that's a really good win for her, just dropping 5 games to Peyton. Yeah, it looks like Anisimova's going deep at a slam again. What are your thoughts on either the 2 matches that occurred today or the upcoming match against Wong for Anisimova?
Yeah, I mean, Anisimova, once again, just feeling herself, especially off the backhand wing. It's pretty impressive how she's done at these Grand Slams. She's now won 15 of her last 17 matches in Grand Slams. And as you mentioned, hasn't dropped a set here. It's just really hard to disrupt her when she gets into a rhythm. And she is a rhythm-based player. You think about like Rybakina as well, enjoys rhythm. So if you're going to like find a way to kind of off balance her, that's using variety, using different shapes. But she is just so strong from the baseline at this point. Serve helps her along. But yeah, I mean, Stearns doesn't have much to offer in that department to trouble her. I mean, the forehand would have to go crazy. So job well done to her. Same scoreline, I think, as Siniakova, 6-1, 6-4. Straight sets, as you mentioned, for Wang. I was watching the first 4 matches, and then they had to postpone the match for quite a while, so I wasn't able to catch that. But a great wing, and it looked like it was the business end of each set where Noskova maybe the gas wasn't there, or kind of the mind slipped up a bit, and Wang was able to take advantage. But Wang always being kind of that threat on a quicker hard court, so probably deserved it in the end. Noskova, like, that's something we'll save for future conversations, but obviously something I think about with Noskova is like kind of the mental and not having that sort of Towson effect, if you will, where, your mind kind of lapses a bit and your body breaks down. You're not moving your feet as much. I feel like she's prone to that sort of lapsing at times in matches. So if she cleans that up, she has that top 15, top 10 ability, but in due time, she'll get there.
The first couple of matches that got unplayed away in Australia last night for us in Europe, or this morning for those in Australia or Asia. Pegula coming through in straight sets. Another one of these cases where I think it was a step too far. Metova having an obviously incredible win over Paula Badosa in the previous round. Pliskova also was a very solid winner in her second round over Janice Chen, but Keys was another level up, and Keys, won that one comfortably, 3-3. So we're going to have Jessica Pegula against Madison Keys. Now, this is where it gets interesting, I think, for both players. How do you see this one panning out?
I'll go off the bat telling you that I am leaning Pegula here. I think the body of work that Keys has put out in the 2026 season it's been concerning at times for me. I think she just like hasn't been all there. I think it was Adelaide, where she escaped. I forget who it was that she played before in Boco. I could look really quickly, but yeah, I just feel like she wasn't all there in Adelaide. But getting kind of the cobwebs off. Obviously, a first round, 2 tight sets. Getting that pressure off her shoulders, and now she started to feel herself a bit more. You're playing Pliskova, like you're gonna have a little bit more opportunity, maybe like a little bit more wiggle room. But thought she played like aggressive when she needed to. First serve got her out of trouble. So, I think she's getting back to that level where she's feeling confident on court. Now it's just difficult, right? You're playing a very good friend. You're playing a fellow American, and it's like this is your first real big test at defending your title. And I think that the consistency of Pegula, the ball that she hits, is just going to cause a little bit of trouble. You have to play such a high-level match for a elongated period of time in tough conditions. So I do think Pegula does prevail here.
Yeah, I feel the same. Regarding the head-to-head, obviously it's 2-1 in Madison's favor, but also just more broadly on Madison. Obviously, she had that incredible start to the year last year, unbeaten and winning the title. I'm going to say Brisbane on the eve of the Australian Open. I think she won it. Might have made the final, but I think she won it. Then, of course, she has that incredible run, beating Swiatek in the semis and Sabalenka in the final of the Australian Open in epic and magnificent circumstances, playing lights-out tennis, the backhand down the line, hurting both of those two aforementioned opponents. And then that unbeaten run, because she skipped, I think, that Middle Eastern swing, lasted until the semi-finals of Indian Wells, and it just kind of blew up. And then she lost, I think, 0-1 or 1-0 to Sabalenka. And that was kind of it in a way. Yep. She did have more wins on the tour. She took a set off Iga memorably in Madrid before going down there. But I just feel as though she's climbed the mountain. She's done it. And now it's, everything else is a bonus. And I think at times this week she has looked a little bit vulnerable even. But there's that, oh, hang on a second, I'm 5-2 double breakdown as she was in the previous round. So not the last one, the previous one. But this is Australia. This is where this is where I feel good. And she showed that in her tennis from that moment onwards and won that match in straight sets. But if I think about Madison's feelings towards tennis at the moment, it's great. She's loving it. But there's maybe not quite that same desire and edge that she would probably need to bring to beat Jessica Pegula in the 4th round of this year's Australian Open. And therefore, like you, I'm going to go Pegula. I'm going to go for Pegula in 3 sets.
I like it. Not sure on the sets, but I'm going to go with Pegula prevailing.
No worries. I think that's it. Yes, it is indeed. Well, been a bit of an epic episode. As I say, today's was very much probably a little bit more heavily focused on the men's side, but we've done plenty where we've been more heavily focused on the women's, and then suddenly the men's became an afterthought. But with obviously Wawrinka bowing out of the sport and Djokovic prevailing and setting up a very tasty match with Mensik, and then the drama around Jannik Sinner as well before he prevailed. There was just a lot of stories there. Okay, Brenna, big thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, John.
We will have watch-alongs again in the next few hours. We've got Fergus will be covering Sabalenka against Mboko. We will have Zach doing Alcaraz against Tommy Paul, and I think I will be doing Lerner Tien against Daniel Medvedev. So if any of those 3 matches have got you excited, and if they haven't, then I think maybe you should watch a different sport, then please do join us for that. But in the meantime, one more thanks to you, Brenna.
Thanks for having me, John.
And to everybody else, set up the video, Johnny boy, drill. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.